All right. We are live here on Facebook. Aaron, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Tyler. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, everybody bear with us a little bit. Both Aaron's on the tail end of a little bit of ick, and I'm on the front end today, just not feeling that great. So we're still excited to be here with you guys. But bear with us a little bit there. If you can, if you guys are watching, put in the chat, put in the comments, where are you watching from and where are your short-term rentals? Today we're talking about the Texas Gulf Coast beachfront areas in Texas with Aaron, who is an amazing short-term rental agent in the area. Aaron, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this.
Yeah, sure. So me and my wife first really started diving into short-term rentals about 3 or 4 years ago. Just stumbling upon it online, just like most everybody had, and I started diving more into the numbers and had always wanted to be in real estate investing, but couldn't find that niche for us. And we had always wanted to have a beach house. And when I started learning more about short-term rentals, realized this is how we can put the puzzle pieces together to make that work for us to be able to have that, you know, someone called maybe a lifestyle asset, but we positioned it also as an investment to make sure that it was going to be worth our while to go through all this work, just as I believe many of you are kind of working through right now as well. And so we acquired that property. My wife had been in real estate on the residential side for about 10 years. And so I learned a lot about the realtor side of the business over time through her. And as I learned more about the real estate investment side of the piece of real estate, and decided that this was a world that I was very passionate about. And so decided a while back that was the decision, that was the direction that I wanted to go as well. And I've found a lot of enjoyment and passion in helping educate other folks on what makes a good investment, what are the things that you need to look for in a property, or maybe the things that you need to avoid in a property. And so those are the things that I've really enjoyed in helping teach others that I've picked up over the years as well.
Awesome. That's amazing. So you're in the Texas Gulf Coast area, Galveston, Crystal Beach, Port Bolivar. Tell us a little bit about the area, because for me, I've never been to that area. So I'm really excited to learn a little bit about it.
Sure. So the Houston, Galveston, Crystal Beach general market is kind of multifaceted. So starting with Galveston, it's technically an island just off the coast of Texas that is connected by a bridge. You can also connect to Crystal Beach from Galveston via ferry. Galveston is a very historic town. There's a lot of history in Galveston. Development started there in the early to mid 1800s, and there's still a few of those homes still standing that have been restored over time that are very, very nice, and very nice architecture involved. Galveston was actually originally their nickname back in the early 1900s, late 1800s, was the Wall Street of the South. And it was a huge booming port town. There was a lot of the finances in the entire southern U.S. were ran through Galveston.
Okay.
A very rich history. And so then the storm of 1900 came. It was the deadliest storm in the country's history.
Wow.
And a whole rebuilding process happened, and that's what brought along the seawall. And so that protects the eastern end of the island. But Galveston is a very interesting island because on the east end you have the historic districts and a lot of entertainment and nightlife and restaurants. And then on the west end you have your more traditional beach houses where they're built up on pier and beam, and you have your 10, 15 feet, sometimes 20 off the ground, and a lot of beachfront properties down there. On Crystal Beach, it's a little more rural. A lot of folks that are drawn to Crystal Beach love Crystal Beach because it is a little more distanced from the city, and it feels a little bit more of a getaway to a little beach town feel. And so, each community has their own draws and pros and cons. Yeah, and then so the Houston market in general is actually we have a great AirDNA score because Houston is a very overlooked market. We're now officially the third largest city in the country.
Wow.
Many people don't even realize that. We've really flown under the radar, and it's really been an underinvested community because of that, for those reasons. And so you'll see there's very few properties that have been professionally designed or have amenities beyond the swimming pool. And there aren't really even many properties with pools in the inner Houston market. And so those that do, there's very few that make under 100,000 a year that have a pool. And there's even some homes that are 30, 40 years old that are very lightly renovated that are still making 100,000 a year. So it's a wide variety of options in this market. And I think that there is really something for anyone in this general region.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm looking at AirDNA right now, and even though, people have said Houston is a very difficult market, the numbers are interesting. Plus 8% annual revenue year over year. Occupancy rate is up 7%, which is probably the highest jump in average occupancy I've ever seen for an area. Occupancy is typically a very difficult metric when you take it on average over how many listings are there? 27,500 listings in Houston. When you take that average and it's jumped 7% year over year, that's crazy. That means a lot more people are coming to the area, a significant amount more. Average daily rates are up 3% and revenue per available rental is up 10% year over year. So I think that's really interesting. Is there a reason that more people are coming to Houston, or what's going on there?
I mark it down as an overall just growing demand for short-term rentals in general. If you look at the Galveston market, it's a very interesting dynamic that you'll see of recent trends there as well. So as most markets in the country, the supply and the demand has rose pretty steadily over the last 5-6 years. In most markets, the supply has outpaced the demand. Galveston is one of them, right? And for a lot of these markets, the supply is just trying to catch up with the demand. Yep. Well, what we've actually seen just in the last few months is that year over year, the supply is actually going down in Galveston.
Yeah.
Because many of those bad operators are getting out of the market, they're selling. And this is where, this point in time is a great opportunity for buyers because there's an 18-month supply of homes on the market in the Galveston market right now alone. And that's the highest it's been in 15 years, I want to say.
Wow.
It's a long time. And so the reason that's important is because prices are dropping. I want to say the last metrics, the prices are down 4% year over year, but the supply is also down. But the key number there is that the demand is still rising. The demand is actually up 12.5% year over year. For when you look at April numbers alone, this last April to the April previous.
Yeah.
So the supply is dropping, yet the demand is continuing to increase. And homes for sale, the asking prices are dropping. So if you're going to go into, if you were to pick a time to go into a market, I can't imagine a better time as far as the metrics are concerned.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And if you just zoom in onto just Galveston, just the island there, annual revenue's up 3% year over year, occupancy steady, average daily rates are up 3%, RevPAR's up 3%, but the number of listings are down 3% as well year over year. So you have less listings and more money. That's a lot more money per operator for sure. And demand is, it's off the charts. It's higher than it's ever been.
Right. And a huge contributing factor to that is that you have 8 million people in the greater Houston area that are feeding into that market, that are feeding into Crystal Beach. I would say probably 50 to 70% of your bookings are going to come from folks in the Houston area. And so, and it's people looking for the beach getaway, right? So you always have a great pool of potential guests to book your property at all times. And, you look at the gurus, they always talk about buying in a market that's within driving distance of a major metro market. It doesn't get much closer than that. You're within an hour of almost the entire metro Houston area.
Yeah. But basically, it's like it's a little bit too far to drive if you wanted to spend multiple days with your family at the beach, right?
Exactly. That's
Yeah. So
exactly right.
yeah, so you hop out there, get an Airbnb. What is there to do? I mean, other than the beach on Galveston, Port Boulevard, Crystal Beach, what is there to actually do?
Yeah, it's really become a tourist market over the last 10 or so years. There's quite a bit to do there besides the restaurants, besides the nightlife. There's also Moody Gardens. It's a nonprofit center that's part museum, part entertainment. They have a water park there that backs up to the bay. They have their own white sand beach there next to the water park. They have an IMAX there. They have two clear glass pyramids that they've turned into museums. One's a rainforest and one's a huge aquarium. There is the historic Pleasure Pier on the beach side that is like a boardwalk, like what you'd see up in the Northeast. It's got roller coasters and restaurants and carnival games out there. And then down on the west end, we have a state park down there where you can go out, and on the bay side, and there's a lot of walking paths and trails. There's a Schlitterbahn water park there on the island as well. There's a lot of things in it, and there's events going on year round that draw guests year round. In the wintertime, there's a special event that is all about Charles Dickens, and everybody dresses up in garb that you'd see in the early 1900s.
Oh, cool.
And walk the Strand. It's really neat. It draws a lot of guests.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay. So what type of houses and what area is your favorite?
Oh goodness, that's really hard because there's several different opportunities that you can go for in the Galveston area. So if you are looking to make over 100K revenue, you're going to have to go at least 4-bedroom. Heads and beds is always going to be important. I think that pretty much goes across the board with any market you're in.
Yeah.
So you could look at beachfront or second tier properties where you may not necessarily have to invest as much in amenities because you have the location on your side, right? And if you go at least 4 bedrooms in a more recent build, you may have to pay more for the property, but you probably will have to invest a little bit less into the property after you purchase it. You could look on the bay side and save a lot of money compared to the beachfront properties, and put in a pool, and maybe invest in a little bit of like a game room, converting like your ground level game garage into a game room. Families love that, and it's pretty rare down on the island that happens. So those are opportunities as well. Folks, I would say the vast majority of the revenue is on the beachfront side, but there's opportunities throughout, right? And any property that has a pool does really well, regardless of the location on the island. That pretty much goes the entire greater Houston area. So you could save money on, say, a $500,000 or $600,000 property, a 4-bedroom, and put in that pool, and you could still clear $100,000 a year in revenue. There's a lot of different types of opportunities. One big thing that we're seeing on the Crystal Beach side, and I have a feeling this is going to be making its way to Galveston here very soon, is that the beachfront properties, especially, they're adding on to the elevated decking of their house and putting in a drop-in pool into the deck.
Yeah.
And these homes
do that in Asheville.
Are you really? That's
we're
really cool. I haven't seen that done outside of a beach market, so that will be very interesting. And it has catapulted the revenue with these properties. I am honestly very surprised at how much it's impacted. So it's taken a property that would make probably about 150 as a nice beachfront house, but not anything over the top, to a $300,000 property.
Yeah.
It's very impressive how much these additions have impacted the revenue.
Yeah, I'm looking through AirDNA right now, and there are definitely 4 bedrooms that aren't beachfront that are doing 200,000 a year. So it's definitely possible. And it sounds like with our type of clients that are going to go in and maybe do a great game room or movie theater, really just go crazy with design and amenities, kind of like we teach. They really do have some opportunity here to come in and even beat the market. One thing I'm noticing kind of a lot over some of these listings is some low ratings. Is that from property management companies in the area? What is it's kind of reminding me of Myrtle Beach, where when we looked the first time, we're like the average rating was like 4.5 stars. We're seeing a lot of personally, I'm going through and seeing a lot of like 4.4 places even doing over 150,000. So is there just not great management in the area where somebody like a self manager who does really well could come in and outperform maybe some of those managers there?
Yes, you bring up a very good point. So there are a lot of legacy operators that still operate down there today, whether that be a local property management company that has just been completely outpaced by the technology and standards of what people expect, or whether that be the Evolves or one of the other big property management companies that just blew up during COVID. And so many property owners just don't realize how mismanaged their properties are, whether they're just not paying, whether they just don't realize how important ratings are, or
Yep.
they've been making the same terrible revenue year over year for years and years now. They just don't even realize what they're missing out on. But yes, like if you're an individual and you're researching this market and you're seeing that, make sure you're considering the ratings on these properties when you say, oh, I can't make more than 60K because this house is only making 60K. Well, odds are, if it's not being managed by the person who owns it or a very reputable co-host, you could probably do better. You could probably do better managing yourself. It's a very old school market.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of people that have owned houses down there for decades and decades, and they, just haven't realized how much the times have changed. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of opportunity for things like that.
What do people need to know about the area? Like if it were you coming in from the outside, everything there is to know about the area. What are the secrets?
The secrets to knowing about the area, as far as like restaurants go, avoiding the chains and understanding the mom and pop restaurants is definitely helps. Let's see, there's a lot of there's like most will go straight to the seawall for the beach. The West End will have a lot fewer crowds, a lot less crowds, and that's a big reason why people prefer to stay on the West End, because it's individual homes, it's not condos. There's not a lot of commercial development down on the West End, so you don't have to worry about the density of the population on holiday weekends. Usually, you can still find the spot and still have plenty of space on the beach.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, amazing. So I know we kind of talked about like 4 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms. What about smaller places? Do they do well there?
Yeah, I mean, there's opportunities for smaller places for sure. As you see with a lot of markets, that's the first space that you'll see, quote unquote saturation. So it's easier to differentiate yourself with the bigger properties. But if you wanted to go 1-2 bedroom, really making sure that you have a good investment in design, and you can still do well. I mean, there's still properties that make between 40 and 65 that are 1 bedrooms.
Yeah.
Because there are so few properties that are well designed. So many people still don't understand the value in designing your property well. So, and the investment that it takes to get there, and any level of amenities helps a ton too, because especially with the smaller ones, they usually don't have the space for amenities. So, and there's even ways to work in amenities that don't take a lot of space. It just takes getting a little creative, whether that being the extra coffee Keurig in the bedroom or things like that.
A waffle bar.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. What do you see for the area in the future? Like what's coming? Anything new coming that people should be aware of? Like, is this
Well,
going to be kind of a re-emerging market?
I think that that there's been we're really undergoing like a balancing out of supply and demand on the Airbnb on the short-term rental side of the market in this region. And so as far as up and coming development, they're actually building a Margaritaville on the island on the East End. And I believe that it's going to be like a little mini water park as part of it, and people can buy day passes. So that will definitely create some interest as well.
Okay.
Galveston is kind of from the residential side and from a city infrastructure side is really undergoing a redevelopment phenomenon because of all this additional revenue that has been generated from all these short-term rentals and hotels and hotel tax revenue. And I mean, they're making like somewhere around 300 million a year just on short-term rental revenue for this one island. I mean, it's a lot of money they're generating. So, and that also, it's kind of off topic to your question, but it also brings up a good point in the sense of the city understands the value in short-term rentals. And this is one of the lowest regulated, in my opinion, major markets in the country. There's only a couple neighborhoods on the entire island that you can't rent as a short-term rental, and that's only because the HOA has decided that they don't want to deal with short-term rentals. So
maybe we lost Aaron. You there?
Yeah,
we got you.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
But yeah, it's so there's a lot of there is very little of the island that's off that's not eligible to be a short-term rental. But as far as like up and coming demand, there continues to be more and more investment in the area because of the amount of visitors that they attract each year. They're actually attracting over 8 million people a year to the island itself, and that's not even counting Crystal Beach. So there's a lot of attention on this area right now.
Very interesting. Okay, cool. Yeah, what else do people need to know?
It's, to me, like the gurus of the industry have dismissed the Galveston Crystal Beach market for several years now. And when I was approaching it from an investor side, I said, cool, nobody's paying attention to us. But over time, we've realized that, okay, I was saying that the gurus have dismissed us as a market, calling it uninvestable for quite a while now. And, from an investor's perspective, you like that because you don't have a whole bunch of eyeballs on your market. But it has created a lot of opportunities in the market because of the locality and the supply and homes not moving as fast, whether that be fears of the economy or things like that have caused a slow in buying. And of course, interest rates have played a huge factor in that. But interest rates have recently been dropping anyway. So the big thing to me is don't dismiss markets because the gurus aren't talking about it. The markets that the gurus aren't talking about are where the opportunities lie.
I was just going to say that. Like, it's like, the people have been shining a light on other things for so long that it now has created opportunity here. And you can see that in the numbers, right? We always rely on the numbers for our investments, and the numbers for Galveston are all looking good. Crystal Beach, Port Boulevard, even for Houston, are looking interesting. But you have demand increasing a significant amount year over year, and all sorts of other reasons why it might make sense to invest here. When you're talking about, the real estate market, prices are coming down. When does that make things a good deal? Are you able to get good seller credits and things like that now?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of aging inventory, and these sellers are getting desperate to move their properties. You could, as a buyer, you can approach it in different ways, right? You could go into it and say, I'll pay your asking price, but I want these things built in to that asking price, and have those have that pull built in to your asking price, or have that redesign, or have those amenities built into your asking price, and have that all financed. That save you a ton of money up front. Or go in with the lower asking price, have less to finance, and with fewer comps over the last year because of the slowed pace of inventory moving. There's fewer comps for these sellers to justify their asking price, and it's to your advantage as a buyer, 100%. If they can't justify their asking price, why would somebody pay it?
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of advantages for buyers right now.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Amazing. Yeah, so it sounds like there's deals to be had, but there's a lot of inventory, so you have to kind of sift through it. So when you're doing you said there's 18 months of inventory right now. So when you're doing these searches, how are you sifting through that inventory? Like, what sets your process apart? And I guess ultimately, why should folks work with you? Like, why do they, what are they coming to you for? And what does your process look like for sifting through those?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different searches that I run every day. So the first one is I'm looking at new listings, of course. But beyond that, I'm looking at properties that already have the pool put in, because that's going to be your biggest expense after purchasing the property, if that was the route that you were going to go. So first I look at that. Then I look at properties with water views. Those are the next best performing properties. I'm looking at least 4 bedrooms. There is also opportunities for, I should have mentioned this before, there's also opportunities for, like, say the home is listed as a 3-bedroom, but it has an office, it has a loft, it has a huge garage, right? Well, a typical home that's residential, nobody's sleeping in the garage and nobody's doing anything in the garage. But you, as an investor, that could be a huge piece of value to you. You could use that office as a game room. You could use that office as an additional bedroom.
Yeah.
As an Airbnb, that guest doesn't necessarily need a closet, right? And so that could be a huge point of value for you as a buyer, because you're buying that home as a 3-bedroom. So it's going to be priced as a 3-bedroom. It's not going to be priced as a 4-bedroom. In fact, the first property that we bought in Galveston had 2 living rooms, because it was an old historic property, had 2 living rooms. So we used one as a living room. We used another one as a sitting room with a convertible couch. You can count that as a bedroom on Airbnb.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it should be, right? Because it is a room that somebody can get in and sleep in. And people may be searching for creative places like that. Like in Asheville, when we started doing these 6 bedrooms, there was nothing you could stay in a 6-bedroom around here. And now we've got 6, 7, and 8 bedrooms that are becoming a little bit more common, not super common, but we think we've actually probably created the demand in our area for these. And I'm sure you're probably seeing the same thing too, because ultimately people didn't have anywhere to stay before. So they were looking, not finding something, and then not coming to the area, which is probably one reason that you're seeing increased demand, in the short-term rentals of double digits year over year consistently for Galveston, Crystal Beach, even Houston. Is probably why you're seeing that, is just a better inventory.
That's exactly right. Right. Like, as everyone ups their game in the industry, people are naturally going to be more attracted to it. So you may convince someone that was going to stay in a hotel, well, let's just group together and go stay in an Airbnb. It costs a little bit more, but we'll all be together. We have a pool to ourselves. We have a game room to ourselves. You know, the home is as nicely or better designed than the hotel room anyway.
Yeah.
You know, the location, we're not really sacrificing on the location because now we have a beach within a half mile from us and we can just ride our golf cart over anyway.
Yeah.
Something like that. But in terms of working with your realtor, if you are looking for a short-term rental, you have to be working with a realtor who understands short-term rentals. Half the realtors that I talk to don't even truly understand what a short-term rental even is. I reached out to one the other day and they said, oh, a short-term rental. They thought I meant a 6-month furnished apartment.
Yeah.
And I said, no, a short-term rental like an Airbnb. Oh, an Airbnb. That not only understanding what a short-term rental is, but how to evaluate one, how to understand what to look for in a short-term rental, and what's going to make money versus not. There's very few, if any at all, realtors that have access to the technology and the platforms that we have access to here at Savvy to evaluate that potential revenue of that property. So if you're looking in the Southeast Texas region for a short-term rental for that very nice tax write-off, or maybe even that lifestyle asset, you've always wanted that beach house, but haven't been able to justify the costs, which is the exact same boat that we were in.
Yeah.
Those are the skills that you need. And if you don't have them, your realtor needs to be able to accurately understand what type of property you should be looking for.
So Luke had a question, I guess, between the differences between Galveston and Crystal Beach.
Oh yeah, sorry. The key differences. So similar. Are you seeing similar trends in Crystal Beach? Trends. Oh, as far as like metrics go, yes, it's very similar. So, you know, it's kind of similar to a lot of markets around the country. It's really pushing out the bad operators. It's pushing out the folks that bought in 2020 that, you know, bought that 2.2 or that 3.2 and didn't invest another penny into it after buying it, and now they're really, you know, getting pushed out of the market because all their bookings are going to other homes of folks who did invest in the design or did invest in the amenities that people want, right? So the supply has reached a point where supply and demand are balancing out now, whereas like back in 2020, demand really surpassed the supply by a large margin, and so people were able to take advantage of it back then. But if you didn't continue to invest in your property, that's where you're kind of getting penalized for it now.
Yeah, totally makes sense. And you know, looking at AirDNA right now, it's a plus 12% year over year increase in Port Boulevard for demand, right? Booking demand over the last 12 months is up 12%. And the graph is like this every year, it just gets more and more and more and more and more. And I think that's really, really interesting. And it looks like, you know, to your point, April to April is up 12%. That's going to be a significant bump this year as well, you know,
Exactly.
when you move into summer. And right now, you know, I know a lot of people may be thinking like maybe it's not the best time. So what does seasonality look like? When is high season there? And how long does that go?
Yeah, I mean, just like probably every beach market for Galveston and Crystal Beach, you're going to be looking at June and July being the highest, the peaks of the demand. August is about 80% of what you'd see in June and July, and then it starts tapering off. But the thing is that it stays warm here for so long that high season doesn't just drop off. It slowly declines over time. You still see good income in August and September and even October, because October and November and December are the kind of those cooling months. October's still pretty hot, so it helps for the beach market. But November and December are really the cooling months, and so you see a lot of the weekends will still be full because that's when people are able to start taking advantage of the beautiful weather, and you can enjoy that deck weather and those sunsets without burning up in the heat, and kids are back in school, but people are still enjoying fewer crowds. And that's so January and February are the slowest months of the year because it is cooler, and down on the coast it's windy all the time. So those are going to be the coolest, the lowest months of the year. But it really starts ramping up fast come about halfway through February, because it starts warming up. And then in all of March, you've got spring breakers. In all of April, you've got spring breakers. March is Texas, and then April is pretty much everywhere else. And we only had 3 open nights in all of March for our
Wow.
I mean, I'm sorry, not March, April. We only had 3 open nights in all of April. I really thought it was going to taper off in April compared to March year over year. And we actually did a little better in April than we did in March. I was very surprised about that because March, I thought, is when everybody had spring break, but that's not the case.
Cool. Awesome. Well, guys, anything else that you want to know from Aaron, please drop in the comments and tag him. You can tag me as well anytime. We'll hop in later and answer any of those questions about the Texas Gulf Coast. Aaron, it was awesome to hang out with you today, man.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much, and we'll see you soon.